Mrs. Parham. We are really delighted to have you here at the Charleston Conference. We really appreciate the way you opened the conference up with such an inspirational talk. And we're doubly delighted to have you here in the Penthouse Suites to chat with us about libraries and about what our future looks like.
Thank you so much. I'm glad to be here.
That's great. That's great. I don't want to really put you on the spot right off the bat, but I was wondering, how does it feel to have been named the 2017 Academic and Research Librarian of the Year, ACRL's Academic and Research Librarian of the Year?
I think at first rather humbling. It is not my style so much to talk about me as it is to talk about we. So therefore, I think that that distinction really is a statement about the many librarians with whom I have worked, currently and over time, and how they have really contributed to my work in this profession and how I think about it and how I approach it. So for all of them, I say thank you.
The notion of working with people and people enabling you to do these things is kind of reinforced by the fact your library was given an Excellence Award, ACRL Excellence Award, is that right?
Yes, it was, yes. And the staff is very happy. We're really excited because, you know, we are the first historically black college university library to ever receive such an award. And for many of us, I think for everyone, that should be a huge deal. It is. It is a professional awareness of the work that goes on at some of these smaller institutions and the impact that we are able to make on our constituents.
The topic of your keynote address this morning was the 21st Century Library, the promise to plan a response. For those who are unable to attend, can you tell us what you see as the key components of a 21st century library?
I think a key component is, one, is knowing your environment, understanding the demographics there and about, and planning, and executing, and evaluating so that you can then plan again. I think that that's key. I think another very important component, particularly for administrators, is to look at the staffing and what it really means as we continue to move forward in this generation. It was interesting, one of the speakers that came after me, and I think there'll be more heard from him, made the comment that, you know, robots pretty soon will be able to do much of what librarians are doing now. So if that's the case, my immediate thought is, well, then who's going to program those robots? And should it be a computer scientist, or should it really be someone that has library background? We have a robot in our library, which I brought on. Oftentimes I do things in a congenial way. I let staff, you know, decide let's do something, but I just thought this was so cool. So I said, we're going to have this robot, and we brought him on, and we programmed this robot to walk through the stacks, to be available to, if nothing else, to help students that are up in the stacks wandering around in lost land. And we did that, and we did what the interesting piece of it, and we have not continued it. The robot, unfortunately, is in a closet somewhere. Because I think that the staff did not sustain the confidence in working with this inanimate object and understand thoroughly what the presence of that technology was saying about the library to those young students in the building. So I think that it's extremely important, going back to your question, that the staff component, there's so many more knowledges that the staff for this 21st Century Library need to have. Different knowledge, different skill sets than that which I learned in library school. Tremendously different. I could go on, and I won't, but there is much to be said in that area in terms of the right mix of staff, acceptance of an addition of different professionals into our staff organizations, and the continuing need to learn all the time to up our game, so to speak.
To be accepting of change and to not be stuck in the same
right. So yes, not only
of doing
yes, But even more aggressive than that, not to just be acceptable of change, but willing to live and be the risk to innovate in order to put in place what's necessary to handle that change.
Your library, the Woodruff Library at Atlanta, the Atlanta University Center, actually services 4 different colleges and
Yes.
universities, historically black colleges and universities. That's got to offer some unique challenges as well as some unique rewards. I wonder if you could elaborate a little bit on those challenges and rewards.
Well, sure. I'm a great one for analogies, all right? So it's much like a family. I have 4 different children, and they're all different. They all, and everyone wants to have their just piece, their just time, their just desserts. And so how do you respond to that without having any one of them feel that they are being overshadowed or overlooked by another? So it really is pretty much the way one manages a family in that respect. But I'm quick to say that what we do is we look for what's common among those institutions and operate from that base. So what's common? What are the common faculty needs? What are the commonalities in curriculum? What are the students looking for? And operate from that basis. We all know what the presidents know, what drives them is the ability to recruit and retain and raise money. So how do we contribute to that? So the importance for us is to understand and to know their plans, know their objectives, and insert ourselves in that in terms of how we plan and deliver our operations. So it's at some time challenging and sometime it's not. I always say to every person on our staff that know this story, for us, because the library itself is an independent 501c3, that's a wonderful joy because we can make quick decisions and turn on a dime. We can innovate very quickly and easily. I don't need permission to innovate. However, at the same time, what is the hardest part for us is that because we are independent, we are not a natural, in the natural scheme of things, we are not naturally sitting at that table at all the faculty meetings as a part of the fabric of each institution's faculty body or its staff administration. So we have to continuously knock on doors, rap on doors, remind the provost offices, the associate provosts, and the various deans that we are here to support who we are. May we get on this committee? We bring value to that committee. Something that perhaps in the traditional environment, the university librarian doesn't have to struggle. The university librarian might be pushing back saying, oh, no, we don't want to be on that committee. But we push out, and that's probably one of the larger challenges. The joy we have, however, is that the students recognize the library space as the one safe place that they can come and they can come together without the boundaries and the barriers of each individual school. So the ladies come there to meet the men, and on and on and on.
Well, that's a function that libraries have performed.
Absolutely.
for a number of years.
Absolutely.
Loretta, you are the co-founder of the HBCU Library Alliance and have written grants to support many of its initiatives such as digitization of archives and leadership training. What do you think are some of the most significant accomplishments of the HBCU Library Alliance?
Well, I think one of the most significant accomplishments is creating an environment where the deans and directors of those libraries can come together, because we did not have that before. That platform was not provided by any other body, not by ALA, ACRL, or by the Black Caucus or anything. So that is the first thing. I mean, we know each other, we know that we exist, and we can tap into one another. I think that's a huge, huge accomplishment. I think the second thing is that we have brought greater visibility to the HBCU institution. I know that before we had the organization, there probably were many, many, many more people who, when you said HBCU, they looked at you cross-eyed. Now, there's still a lot of those, but perhaps not quite as many, because we have been successful, I think, in making noise. I mean, I tell everyone, particularly for the AU Center Woodruff Library, this is so much about bringing visibility to our community, and not to Loretta, and not to the AUC Woodruff Library per se. It's to this larger community, which are serving a very important constituency in higher education. So I think that is a huge accomplishment for the organization. And then third of all, of course, is the opportunity to do things that will help with the development of the professionals within our institutions in a comfortable and honest environment, such as and also the digital collections as well, yes.
Looking toward the future, what other steps will the Alliance be taking to make HBCU libraries more viable and effective? For instance, is there a plan to update or expand the digital archives collection that's currently available on the website?
So I am currently not on the board of the HBCU Library Alliance. Being a wise old bird, I think, you have to, I said, let's step away and let some of these emerging leaders come in and move the organization forward. So I'm saying what I assume to be is that, yes, the digital archive will grow. We need to change the platform. My library hosts the collection. We need to change the platform. Technology has changed so much since we launched that initiative, and so we need to reflect that in this collection. The wonderful thing is that so many of the libraries, however, since the time that we started talking about it, have found ways to network with other libraries in their state on digital initiatives and programs, where before those libraries were not even considered. Now, I think in many cases what we have is that the nearby ARL or the other institutions, when they think about doing projects, initiating initiatives, and et cetera, they do say, well, should we reach out and include and bring to the table Glenda, from her institution, or should we bring, the librarian to the table from Florida's A&M, or whatever the HBCU is nearby, so that we do have a rich conversation, so that we do include institutions that have smaller collections, but of no less significance than others that have larger collections. So I think that is one thing that the HBCU Library Alliance will do moving forward. They have expanded their board. They've taken on, they've included 2 new board members from outside the HBCU constituent, who I think will really be helpful to the Alliance in helping it to advocate and garner the level of support that's needed to continue to be effective.
Has the Alliance itself grown over the years, or is it still the original members?
The Alliance is still the original members, that is the members that are part of the White House designated historically black colleges and universities. It is still, and it is an institutional membership. And it's an institutional membership because we wanted to get the institution's commitment to libraries and archives. If an individual membership would mean, yes, Loretta's a member and I'm thrilled and I'm gung-ho and I'm doing all that I need to do. But the institutional commitment means that in many cases that the provost, the CFO, and the president, the deans have committed in dollar and in time to our membership in this organization, and that's really important.
Well, it really gives you an opportunity to build coalitions.
Yes, it does.
Which is really an
Exactly.
important thing. And I think that was something you mentioned in your talk
Yes.
earlier this morning. So, you have been applauded for being transformational in your vision in terms of libraries, in terms of research and learning and outreach. And I was wondering, how would you define transformational?
How would I define transformational? Not to be repetitive, but I think 1 is being aware, and 2, being willing to take the risk, learning from those risks, committing to that change, and really understanding that it's not about the library, it's not about the individual, it's about the desired outcome, and in our case it happens to be excellence in teaching and learning. Transformational to me also is about a sharing of the objective, sharing of the mission and the vision, and this selfless commitment to making it happen. Because I think in order to transform, we all have to give up something in order to really obtain something. And then talk about it, of course, often. Yes.
It seems, I was looking at your website and just doing a little research and preparing to do the interview. It seems that outreach to both faculty and students is one of the keynotes of your library. And I was wondering, is there something unique about your approach that you could share with us that other libraries could benefit from in terms of outreach to the faculty and to the students?
Well, I don't know if it's unique so much as it needs to be continuous. And I think that one of the things that happens for us is that, again, we're the bridge. Everything that we do is not done for one, it's done for all. So when we work, we really, everything in terms of outreach means, okay, if we're going to have this meeting, this project, then we have to make sure that we have representation from all those institutions, that we have joint student groups with students from all of the institutions, and that we represent the undergraduate population and or the graduate population in their in the best way. So I think that it may be more of my, about half my career was in public library work. And so it may be from that work that I'm very sensitized to the importance of collaboration, working within community, doing programs, designing projects and programs that will engage and involve others, and marketing that is talking about what you're doing, not living in a tunnel, so to speak, but getting out. So we spend money on outreach collateral, not time and effort, and everything. I have this, I probably got this from my mom, but everything needs to be done in the most professional and quality way. So I jokingly remember that when I first, when I go to any library, but certainly this one, when I first started this library, some places they were still like, if there was a sudden change, if the printer went down that day, that someone quickly had scribbled printer out of order and pasted it on the printer. This is absolutely unacceptable in my way, because what it says is that we are not anticipating that the printer might ever fail. Because if we anticipated that, then we would have appropriate communication and signage prepared. We wouldn't have to last minute scribble. That's just an example of what I talk about in terms of knowing your community, knowing your environment, and understanding what the possibilities are, good or bad, and then planning for both of those.
Diversity and inclusion are promoted as essential values by librarians, yet a recent Ithaca S&R report notes that the library profession is overwhelmingly white, especially in leadership positions. Why do you think there is such a disparity, and what should the profession be doing about it?
Well, first of all, I've been in this field for 40 years, and that's been the story for 40 years, I would say.
Yes.
I just do not think that there is a golden answer or a crystal ball on this. I do think that some of this onus and responsibility belongs to the schools of library and information science, because they create the pool from which we will recruit. So I think it's important that the higher ed components are empowered at their institutions in somehow or another to be able to employ strategies which will diversify the student body in a greater way. I feel so very strongly about that. I think in terms of the library itself, there's always the opportunity for us to recognize talent that we have and to encourage and promote that talent, which may not be professional at the time, and promote and encourage them to pursue their library degrees. I know that our library collaborated with a couple of the University of Northern Texas and another school, it escapes me at this moment, on their online program. And in collaboration, we simply hosted a few of the local sessions that were held, offline. And as a result of that collaboration, however, we were able to recruit. I know for sure there were 2 librarians that we hired in the subsequent years, which came from that program, 2 librarians of color, which came from that program. So I think it's real important, as I was saying, to partner with others. And then just go out and knock on doors. If like I'm in Atlanta, it makes it a little easier for me than someone who might be located in Albany or some other smaller community. Because many times people want to move to Atlanta, and so I become the bridge to getting there. So if you're in a popular urban community, it's less of an issue. But if you're not, I think it's a challenge, and I think that it will be for some very long time, particularly as the need for librarians changes, and particularly as the compensation for these librarians or these information scientists continues to increase. In some cases, we are priced out of getting that desirable person, either because perhaps a better resource library can afford to hire them at a higher salary, or what's happening more and more now, that the corporate sector is taking our best and most talented librarians and information scientists. So that's a huge challenge to the whole need for diversity and improving it. But of course, I will say this about diversity. It really starts with accepting the differences and embracing those differences. Even when we go to conferences, et cetera. It's about embracing the differences and giving leadership opportunities to those who present a difference.
It sounds like mentoring would play a good
I
role
think
in
so,
this.
yes,
From what
yes.
you said earlier, and what you
Yes.
just said. Before we let you go, I want to ask one final question. It's not really a trick question, but it's if you were sitting in my chair or sitting in Glenda's chair, what question would you ask yourself?
Oh, wow. But do I have to answer it?
That would be nice.
Then that's a different question.
Well, I have a question following up on your mentoring,
Oh,
because that was alluded to in Loretta's presentation
Right.
this morning.
exactly.
And that is that we're an older generation that's passing the baton to the younger generation of librarians. So what type of mentoring do you think we should be doing as we try to help these younger librarians come into leadership positions?
I think that it was interesting. I spoke at a symposium at the University of Michigan, their bicentennial symposium, a month ago. And at the very end of the panel presentation, someone did ask me a similar question. In other words, I think it was a faculty member. He'd say, what can we do to improve the quality of the program for the graduates that are coming out of the School of Information there? And my answer to them is I think it's the same answer I want to offer to you, Glenda. And that is, as a mentor, what we can do is help them on the soft side, help them understand the importance and how to communicate effectively, how to sit down and have a conversation, how to present, how to articulate their opinion or their information they want to pass on in an effective way. And I think given the fact that there's such a reliance on electronic devices and attention and a tendency for many of the generation that comes behind us to really just have this tunnel vision, to operate almost in a self-silo mode, it's extremely important that as a mentor we help them understand how to come out of that mode so that they will be viewed as a valuable member of the teams there. And there's more, but I would pause there for sure. Mentoring, survival skills, how to effectively even participate in Skype interviews. We use the new technology for Skype, but I'm sure we can all tell interesting horror stories about these Skype interviews, to include the one I remember where someone was actually eating during the course of the Skype interview. Really?
Oh, brothers.
The things that mom and dad taught you, without being too simplistic in my analogy, but those are the things that, as a mentor, we can bring, and so that we can create a level of confidence and security in those emerging leaders.
And I think there's a level of professionalism that mentoring
That's right.
can inculcate
Yes.
into the new librarian.
Yes.
But we're not going to let you off the hook about the.
I thought you'd give me for that.
Maybe if we thought of it in a different way, what question should we have asked you that we didn't?
Perhaps you would ask me, was it hard? Has this movement through the profession, has it been hard? Has it always been fun? And my answer would be yes. There have been some difficult moments, and yes, it's always been fun to me. I think it's important to have a passion about what you're doing, what you do, whatever it is. Clearly, our most successful, in whatever field, the most successful people are those that have a passion about their work, because then they're not driven so much by someone else's agenda or by compensation even. Not to say that money's not good, but they're not so compelled and driven by that, because they are really compelled and driven to make a difference in that area. So I think that is, for me, has made the difference. And also work-life balance. How do you succeed in your plan and maintain some measure of work-life balance? And that is, leaving it at the door.
Well, I think that contributes to your professional success, that
Yes.
balance and other outside interests and family.
I agree. I mean, it's about, not to be cliche, but it is about servant leadership more than anything.
Glenda, do you have any other questions you'd like to ask Ms. Parham?
No, I don't have any other questions, but I was going to piggyback on that to say that I'm a graduate of the Atlanta University School of Libraries.
Oh, wonderful.
Service. So
Wow.
when Loretta mentioned service, it harkened back to my library school days when we were not in a science, but in a service.
Service. Well, I think and that's coming full circle, because service is becoming one of the, it's what we do now.
Yes.
We're less and less being perceived, I think, as collections and
Absolutely.
and a place, but as a service to our students, our faculty, and our public, for
Absolutely.
former public librarians like yourself and me.
Absolutely.
From public
It's about
library.
helping them to create and curate and preserve content
Yeah. So,
and find it.
discovery.
Hopefully.
Discovery. Thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule to come and talk to us. I've enjoyed it thoroughly, and I'm sure Glenda has too. So thank you.
Thank you so very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Right.